I'm starting to feel so sorry for bass players. Submission Audio just released their brand new virtual bass instrument, Umansky Bass, based off Jacob Umansky, who is the current bassist of Intervals. Jacob is widely known for using his Dingwall 6-string bass, and that exact bass has been sampled and used within this VST. It's getting really hard to justify buying a real bass, at least for me, anytime soon. Every time I think about doing it, something like this comes out and I just think, well, this is just easier and it's probably going to sound better anyway. Between the time, resources, money it all takes to record an actual bass at a studio quality level that I know I will be happy with, I know that I'm going to get a better result out of something like this every single time. This new Umansky bass is definitely going to be my go-to in terms of the virtual bass that I'll be using on basically any video for any demo track I make going forward. And that's got everything to do with the sheer amount of detail that you can use when you're actually programming the bass MIDI within your DAW. There's so many different articulations, so many ways to kind of force the virtual instrument to play exactly like you would a real bass. It's actually kind of scary. Little disclaimer, I am an affiliate for Submission Audio and have been for a very long time. There is affiliate links for all their plugins as well as this one in the description below, so if you do decide to purchase it, I do get a little bit of a kickback from it, but I will not be representing a product that I didn't believe in. I've been using Submission Audio based VSTs basically since they came out, and I haven't used any other because there is nothing that sounds quite like it. So let's hear what it sounds like in a demo mix, but before we do that, if you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you see or hear, and if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. If you guys want to support me directly, you can grab the tab, stems, DIs, all that stuff to the little demo track that you're about to hear, which is actually lock and key from Intervals, and the bass MIDI was actually programmed by Jacob himself, which is very cool. And if you want to support me further, you can check out the brand new EP that I just dropped titled Gradient, tabs, stems, tones, merch, all that stuff is available on my web store, and you can check out the affiliate links in the description as well. So how does it sound in the mix? So let's go through the UI of Umansky Bass so we get fully familiar with what the plugin offers. So as you can see on the bottom, there are 4 different types of tones that you can pick from straight away. You don't need an external bass plugin to get a tone out of this. It's not just a DI. You do have a clean tone, grit tone, and heavy tone. And within those, you have the mixer as well. So you can adjust exactly what you want the tone to sound like. For example, if I solo out the bass tone and use the heavy tone and use the grit tone, they're a little bit different, and then clean's going to be clean, and then DI is just going to sound like a plain bass with no amps or anything. But within each tone, you can adjust certain things like drive, the actual tone, whether you want it darker or brighter, the compression level, and the girth of the bottom end as well. So you can get pretty intricate with the exact tone, and all these tones are basically mix ready in the box, so it saves you the trouble of needing to mix your own bass tone from scratch. And in the riff that you heard me playing before, I was just using the standard grit tone with no changes. The fretboard is completely interactive, so no matter what fret or what string you pick, there will be a note generated. And if you pick the same note on a different string, it's not going to sound the same. It's going to sound like that note on that string, which is a very important detail, and it's something that the guys at Submission Audio did a lot of work on. They even went as far as to record the same note, I think something between 10 and 12 times for each note on each of the frets, so that when you're doing like a fast run or alternate picking or something like that, the chances of you hearing the same sampled note over and over is very slim. On the bottom, we have the articulation, so we can see the exact articulation that we're using, and that's dependent on which one you pick in your MIDI when you're making the MIDI. We'll go through that in a little bit. And then we have the alternate picking trigger, so you can basically pick how fast you want that to kick in, depending on the space between each of the notes relative to the BPM of the song that you're making. The Doom switch basically sets everything to 11 and makes everything sound very artificial, which can be great for some use cases. For example, one that comes to mind is something if you're trying to make like a Doom track sort of song or something like that, where it's just completely artificial, almost synthy, but to keep it more humanized, you do have the humanized knob here. The position knob is also cool because it basically acts as a virtual capo. If you set it to 1, for example, you basically avoid all open notes. So you can kind of get really intricate of how you want to set that. Moving on to the settings page, which has all the articulations and everything like that. This is where not only this plugin, but all of the Submission Audio based VSTs really shine. As you can see here, there are a bunch of different articulations you can pick from, anything from using just the index finger to slapping, popping, dead popping, harmonic, thump, double thump pop. Like, there is so many different articulations that you can use in this bass VST, and if you really want to delve into making it sound exactly the way that you envision it, you definitely can. You can even go as far to force the actual VST to use a certain string for each note. So for example, by forcing the E string, whatever note that you've picked in the MIDI, it'll play it on that E string. It won't default to another string. So that's really helpful. Say if you wanted to program your bass to play exactly like you were playing it on guitar, frets, strings, everything, to kind of get that one-to-one representation, you can definitely do that with all of these key switches over here. And these key switches definitely correlate to the bass tuning that you set within the actual plugin itself. So for example, you can see this bass is pretty much tuned to standard, with the lowest note being a B. And then the next note will be an E, A, D, G, and so on. But for example, I could program this all the way down to G sharp, and all of a sudden we've got a G sharp. And that, between the MIDI and the 4th string and the way you kind of write out your MIDI, will kind of dictate how it sounds based on the tuning that you've picked. So going on to the actual bass MIDI itself and how you would write it out, all of these here are the actual notes that are being played on the bass. And then up here is where you tell Umansky Bass which string you want to use for a certain note. So as you can see, all of these notes here correlate to the ones that are being played here. Like this open run here of the lowest note is being just played on the B string, I'm assuming. And then below the actual notes itself, down here is where you do your different articulations for things like thumping, popping, double thumping, finger alternate, finger index, and stuff like that. So I don't know them on the top of my head, but I think Jacob himself has actually gone to the liberty of kind of programming this the exact way that he would when he's playing the actual song live, which is very cool. And as you can tell, when you play it back, it sounds pretty much exactly like the real thing. With the pops there. So as you can probably tell, this is extremely detailed, and you can definitely get some very realistic bass recordings using this VST. On top of all that, this is obviously a dingwall bass, and it's something that a lot of people in the progressive and gent scene really like to use. So by having this in a VST format to this scale with this many articulations and this many things you can do with it is actually a lifesaver. I definitely am going to be using this pretty much exclusively for anything remotely heavy from this video onwards, in terms of programming bass for any little demo songs and stuff that I make. I wish that this was around when I was writing my EP, because I definitely would have used this plugin instead, because there are so many articulations and I could have had it exactly the way that I wanted. But it still sounds great either way. It's just that this has much more flexibility, and the added tones and stuff as well. It's just the full package. Like, it's going to be really hard to top this plugin in my opinion. So in context, one more time, with the bass kind of louder in the mix, you can just hear straight away that it's just a different class. So there you have it, that's Submission Audio's brand new Umansky Bass. If you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard. And if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. Again, if you want to support me directly, you can grab the tab stamps, DRs, all that stuff for the demo song that you heard with this in my Patreon, as well as all my affiliate links, my web store, all that stuff will be in the description below. Massive thank you to all my Patrons. Without you guys, I wouldn't be making videos like this. Massive thanks to Submission Audio for letting me try this early. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.